Nothing human is achieved in the grip of fear. This text was put up as a poster in Paris, Lyon, and Marseille, and distributed in other cities. Some copies were sent to the press after the sabotage of the print shop in Lyon. The series of bombings carried out in Paris recently have as their immediate consequence the reinforcement of police control. Paris is now in a state of siege. The media's chattering, asking, "Who did it?" hides the essential question, which is, whose ends does it serve? The exploitation of the bombings by the cops and the specialists in lying plays its part in a state strategy and makes the climate of generalized defeat in France even more absolute. Little by little, a thought must enter one's head that the increase and systemization of repressive measures are necessary and inescapable. The everyday nature of the areas targeted by this strategy of widespread panic reinforces the feeling of anxiety and powerlessness in everyone. The terrain is prepared and justice can bury alive anyone who holds his head up. In this shitty country, any proletarian who does not feel guilty is suspect and thus can be murdered. After the flare-up of the French suburbs in 1981, the state left the social reaction, which led to the crushing of all those who were growing restless in this country, to the initiative of reactionary vigilantes. The bombs set off in the cities around Marseille, in Le Caillou and Bassin in 1981, in La Brigade in 1983, and the murderous summers of 1982 and 1983 are two aspects of a decisive moment. When justice hasn't already taken care of them, terror and isolation now paralyze the majority of those who have not surrendered. Footnote: during these summers, cops and reactionary vigilantes killed a large number of young proletarians. By ignoring these murders or merely slapping their perpetrators on the wrists, the state gave these scum its seal of approval. The state hammers in the final nail. It uses the legal system to complete what reality has already imposed. The Badinter projection for modernized legal code confirms the license to kill while extending the right of self-defense to include the defense of property. The stage is set. Police custody for 4 days, the gathering of criminal and terrorist files, a general intensification of the penalties for all forms of delinquency, suppression of remission of sentences. The media devotes itself to making us believe that only terrorists attack the state and that, consequently, anyone who attacks the state is a terrorist. Their intention is clear: to define every act of revolt as terrorism, and at the same time to increase the emotional charge attached to the word tenfold. Terrorism is the continuation of politics by other means. The campaign of sabotage in solidarity with the prison revolt in the summer of 1985 was the work of a few organized proletarians. The media attributed it to mysterious railroad terrorists. More recently, on December 20th, subway wildcat strikers were accused of taking Parisians hostage. The same day, in Nantes, Courtois, Calqui, and Thiolet were also said to have taken the media hostage. This is a sordid reversal of reality on the part of those whose job is precisely to colonize minds. These sharks particularly displease us. Footnote: during a trial, Calqui, who had been released from prison just 3 weeks earlier, went to the courtroom where friends were on trial in order to free them. They took the judge, some court officials, and the jury hostage. Then they demanded that TV cameras be brought into the courtroom so that they could talk publicly about cops, prisons, quote-unquote justice, about their innocence in the trial, about their lives that had been interrupted by several periods of imprisonment. They had been in prison for 2 years awaiting trial, etc. They surrendered after 2 days in exchange for a promise from the state that Calqui would be deported to a country of his choice. The state broke this promise even after Calqui's long hunger strike. Most French proletarians recognize themselves in what these 3 men did. Manipulation achieves its goal in all this. Future trials will take place in an atmosphere that is most unhealthy for those who are the state's real target. After having the milestone of terrorism hung around their necks, the sentences they receive will be staggering. Unlike what happened in Italy in the 1970s, these bombings are not the last weapons of a state at bay. Footnote: Secret Service agents and fascists in government bombed railroad stations and other places in Italy slaughtering large numbers of people in an effort to sow confusion about the real social insurgency then going on in Italy. Unfortunately, some so-called revolutionaries added to this confusion by attributing to fascists or government agents any attack against the ruling institutions that did not conform to their ideological preferences. Returning to the text. In France, partisans of the state intend to consolidate the position of strength it has acquired over the last few years as much as possible. The Italian state used expeditious means for creating terror in the population and at the same time for justifying emergency measures using the police and the army. But since then, we have learned that such emergency measures, imposed for the moment, become the rule. We are suffering directly from the intensification of the means of control. The sinister German precedent gives a foretaste of what is hanging over our heads. It becomes more and more difficult to conceal oneself from the eyes of the state. In this world, only commodities can circulate freely. For us, the poor, the simple act of circulating is becoming dangerous. Down with France! Os Cangaceiros, February 12, 1986. Immaculé, pas d'autre choix au préalable que de s'y électrocuter. La saleté n'est pas une option, loin d'être une vocation.